So, yesterday was a remarkably busy day. We saw the headline that Biden partially lifted the ban on Ukraine using U.S. weapons in strikes inside Russia. This is Radio Free Europe, echoing what we saw in Politico. I talked about this in this video here about how the Biden administration was allowing this. I talked about it also in my four big stories yesterday. So, I'm not going to revisit that portion, but then we saw a couple things. Of course, the Russians are unhappy about this. Medvedev is claiming that, don't take these nuclear threats lightly because this is no bluff. We're really going to do it. And at the same time, the Pentagon was doubling down, saying that there was no change in policy in banning Ukraine from striking Russia with U.S. arms. The Pentagon on May 30th insisted there had been no change in policy after several news outlets reported the White House had secretly partially lifted the ban on Ukraine striking Russian territory with American weapons. Citing unnamed American officials, Politico reported on May 30th that President Joe Biden's administration had given the go-ahead for Kyiv to attack targets inside Russia, but solely near the area of Kharkiv. The report was then confirmed by other outlets, including ABC News and the Associated Press. The president recently directed his team to ensure that Ukraine is able to use U.S. weapons for counter-fire purposes in Kharkiv so Ukraine can hit back at Russian forces. The source added that Washington's policy of allowing long-range strikes has not changed, and Ukraine cannot use weapons to hit military targets deep inside Russia. Security assistance that we provide, now this is the conference yesterday, and she and Secretary Austin and the Air Force spokesperson, all like last week, were the ones saying, no, the policy hasn't changed, the policy hasn't changed, the policy hasn't changed. And she's doubling down yet again. Again, this is our policy, nothing has changed. That was just yesterday when that was being reported. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit. Ukraine's army chief says Russia is pushing more troops into critical Kharkiv region. Chief of Ukraine's army has said that Russia's pushing them into the northeast Kharkiv region, where Moscow's forces have made significant advances in a spring offensive. The Air Force said overnight, and now I told you that Putin's going to want to show his displeasure, and I was surprised that there was so few attacks last night. Air Force said overnight that it included attacks included 8 S-300 ballistic missiles, 11 cruise missiles, 32 Shahed drones. Okay, so 8 and 11, that's 19, and then 32 Shahed drones. All the drones and 7 of the 19 missiles were shot down, the Air Force said, and didn't give any other details. So, but I'm surprised it was that few, because there was the NATO conference. You got the news about Biden changing his policy in a small way in order to allow the hits back into Kharkiv. And usually Putin, demonstrates his displeasure with a massive missile barrage when there's something like a big NATO conference. Okay, 1,390 Russians off the battlefield. Just overnight, 18 tanks, 22 armored combat vehicles, 39 artillery pieces, 11 special equipment, and 56 vehicles and fuel tanks. Now, okay, what's interesting about this number, we just passed the 500,000 mark. Is the 500,000 mark legitimate? Well, the British military intelligence estimate came out and said the total number of Russian casualties killed and wounded since the start of the war in February 2022 has now likely reached 500,000. Russian losses have continued at a high level in 2024, and in May, average personnel casualties were over 1,200 per day. That's very high, the highest reported since the start of the war. Okay, so yeah, it probably has reached 500,000. That's probably a legitimate uh, something to hang your hat on. But here's what I want to show you though. We just hit 500,000 according to the Ukrainian estimates 1 week ago. That is last Saturday, and now 6 days later, well, 7 days later, if you want to go like that, 7 days later, you're already up more than 7,000. So it keeps on moving, and you'll be easily by September, maybe even August, at 600,000. It's mind-numbing to see the casualties and just the carnage here. Okay, Andrew Perpetua, again, yesterday it was like 8-1. Now, when I said 8-1, I was talking about the vehicles and the things destroyed on the battlefield that he's tracking, not personnel 8-1. But it looks like it's about 7-1 today. I mean, it's also, again, pretty hot. This is Andrew Perpetua who does the tracking, and he's got a very tough job doing this. This is the 243rd day of the Russian offensive. In this time, they have almost 2,900 armored vehicles, plus artillery destroyed, plus 1,100 more abandoned. Combined is just under 4,000. This is actually an undercount as well because we don't have enough money to buy all the high-res images. Like, wow. And then he talked about it like the ratio was significant as well, and it's yeah, it's something. Okay. Okay, let's look at key post sources said that Ukrainian security services, the SBU, executed a comprehensive multi-day operation to take out the logistics change supporting Russian troops in occupying Crimea. And these hits aren't just let me see a target and fire at it. They're really trying to do something specific here, trying to keep the the Russian forces in Crimea, create a scenario where they're going to be more cut off than not. And that makes sense of what you're about to see here. So Russian rail ferries and Condo Trader, right? Okay, so this is Andard and Condo Trader are damaged in Ukrainian missile attack on occupied Kerch on May 30. So that's part of it. And then there's also 20. Now, I don't know if this is accidental or if this is just, it could be, I don't want to say something that's an accident is something that was caused. But 29 coal wagons derailed in the Amur region of the Russian Federation. The forest caught fire as a result of the incident. But, that coal being off or the rail lines being plugged up is a good thing for Ukraine. I don't know if it's caused. Same thing here. A multi-story factory and warehouse building has been on fire since 4:20 in the morning. Fire continues to spread. This is in Moscow itself. Don't know if that's related or not. But what is related very clearly is air raid sirens are blaring in Novorossiysk. Black Sea Fleet was moved to the port here from occupied Crimea, and a giant oil refinery is also nearby. Krasnodar region, a large oil depot was on fire. This fire was not caused by a careless smoker. It was caused by Ukraine striking back. This is probably the same thing here. Drones visited an oil depot in the Krasnodar territory this night. 3 tanks with fuel burned. 2 workers were injured. Some publications write that it's about an oil depot in the port of Kavkaz. An alarm was sounded in Novorossiysk because of the UAV attack. This is Kavkaz, Crimea, occupied Crimea. Ukraine is liberating the peninsula, one series of ATACMS strikes at a time. I don't know that this was an ATACMS or what it was exactly, but nonetheless, you get the idea. And here's the aftermath of this big news. Large seaport in Kavkaz, Krasnodar Krai got hit fiery crossing in an oil terminal. Drones also went after this oil depot. Later, a long-range UAV hit a plant in Kazan. Quite a massive simultaneous attack with anti-ship missiles and various drones. Now, the day before, they also hit SBU drones destroyed a $100 million Russian radar system in Crimea, which will help blind them to further attacks. It was used to monitor more than 380-kilometer section of the front, protecting Russian positions in Crimea. So the idea that they were executing a comprehensive multi-day operation to take out logistics change and cut off Crimea, I think is a very fair point. Now, this article I read in full. I'm not going to read the title of the article for YouTube censors. You can read it on your own. You can look it up on your own. This is what Russia does. If you want to know who the good guys or the bad guys are, you can look at pretty simple indicators. Like when the Berlin Wall fell, you use this test. You say, from which country did they flee and into what country? Did they flee from Germany into the loving arms of East Germany, or did they flee from East Germany into Germany? And same kind of test here. Who are the good guys? Well, look which side of the equation is doing to the other. And that's usually a very simple test to understand what's going on. And then the Russians like to say that the reason that they're doing what they're doing is to protect Russians. But if they're protecting Russians and Russian speakers, why are they indiscriminately attacking Russian speakers? Russians kill all Ukrainians indiscriminately. It makes no difference if these Ukrainians are Ukrainian or Russian-speaking. Russians target them all. I mean, it's a fair point. Finally, Ukraine and Russia exchanged 75 prisoners of war. We're going to watch a bit of the return here in this little video. There's nothing graphic in this video. It's just showing the prisoners coming back from Russia. first moments back home after Russian captivity, warriors are greeted by a rainbow. They kiss their native land. I'm sure they're very happy to be back. Okay, my friends, that's all that I have here. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes. Thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.